So, welcome to this sixth part of this course on porn and sex-related addiction recovery. So, here we will be discussing the phases of addiction. It's a slow fade. Nobody wakes up intending to become addicted. They just find that gradually, from a few minutes use becomes hours and then becomes a compulsive use, at which point they cannot rationally think their way out and they begin to rationalize the use in their own mind. So now our objectives are still the same. Intentionally hammering these objectives so that you will know that you're not just quitting an addiction, you're on a trajectory that should make you a different person. And I'm hoping that you're also engaging with your workbooks and the worksheets that are made available. You will be able to max out the benefits from this course if you are intentionally using those workbooks because it reinforces what you've learned. It gives you hands-on material to continue to steward your recovery after you have watched this video. And you can come back to the videos again and again and again. So the objectives are, again, to guide you towards sustainable freedom from porn, sex-related addiction through emotional healing, because we said the emotional and the psychological one sometimes is the point through you which your is the weak point through which addiction continues to fester that perpetuates the addiction. So also through behavioral transformation, spiritual growth, and healthy coping mechanism. And after having achieved the first objective, we hope to also now rebuild a balanced and a purpose-driven life. Everyone should be gunning for a balanced and a purpose-driven life by strengthening mental wellness, relationships, identity, discipline, and personal value. So a few quotes just to get us settled in today's topic. The first one says that every healthy choice weakens the chain of addiction and strengthens the path to freedom. You know, I mentioned two pathways. You have the addiction pathway, which you have built over months, over years. And then there's the recovery pathway, which you're currently on. And you want to intentionally steward that by making healthy choices here and there. The choice to sleep on time, the choice to put barricades and applications that limit or restrict your access to such sites, the choice to pray, the choice to read books, the choice to journal, the choice to hang out with positive people. Those are all healthy choices that will strengthen your path to freedom. And more than that, strengthen your path to a balanced and purpose-driven life. So every healthy choice weakens the old chains and strengthens the new pathway that you want to adopt for a new life. And the second quote states that the brain can change. That's true. The brain can heal. When we're discussing the neurobiology, I mentioned neuroplasticity. It's from the word plastic. You know what plastic is? When you take away the pressure, it's able to bounce back to its former shape. So the brain is able to recover. Once you take away the initial negative stimulus and then you get on that trajectory to give positive stimulus that will facilitate healing. So the brain can change. Your art can heal the emotional one, the psychological pain. You can heal from it, and then life can be rebuilt. Regardless of how much the addiction has impacted your life, you can rebuild it with intentionality, with one purposeful step after the other. And the final quote states that one honest conversation can become the beginning of transformation. What you're watching now is an honest conversation. The one you have with your accountability partner is an honest conversation. The one you have with your spouse as to your struggles and your intention to heal. That's a honest conversation, and it sets you on the trajectory for not just healing, transformation. Transformation, you become a different person from who you used to be. So now this pyramid just gives a bit of the steps that eventually leads to addiction. So the first on the ladder, where you will have more people are those who come across it accidentally. You're watching regular things on the media and then something pops up. And out of curiosity, accidentally you land in the wrong site. If you back up immediately, we'll say it was accidental. But some people will not back up immediately. They then get to the second phase. They now become more curious. So this is interesting. Let's check some more. And then you go checking for some other things from that same site. You are already climbing the ladder that leads to obsession by and by. Then people begin to have problem controlling it. Before you know, it becomes a problem, at which point they cannot limit or moderate their use. And before you know it, it's almost a daily use. Then it dominates their life. And at a certain point, you say they are obsessed with it. The bulk of their waking up time, even sleeping time is spent thinking about pornography and sex-related addiction. They dream, that is what they're dreaming about having um, dreaming about themselves having sexual intercourse in the dream and all sort of unusual, weird, demonic things, if I can use that word. But it's a slow fade. Nobody starts at 1 and hopes to end at 7. But at the accidental phase is the time to back up and block such sites and even report such sites. You know, for every advertisement that comes up on your gadgets, if you have been intentional, it has opportunity for you to stop it and then report. The ideal thing you should do is reporting. Reporting may not stop them from showing such advertisements, but because you have reported, at least it sends a signal that you do not want such advertisement on your own channel. You pay for your data. You should be able to moderate. You should be able to put some boundaries and some limitations around the things that pop up. But if you're not reporting and it just keeps popping up, it will be assumed that you want such or you're tolerant of such. So you report, you click, you close it, and then you report such if you accidentally come about it. And then you don't get more curious to find out what's happening. Yeah, and then you're already opening your internet search to an algorithm that permits such pop-ups to keep showing. Because if you're wondering why is it that some things keep showing, because you built an algorithm and then internet regulators, if I can use that word, are able to just track you down and keep sending you such. There's somebody who's always watching sermons, who is always watching lectures, who is always doing research, who is watching cooking channels, who is watching furniture channels. Where and what's the relationship now? How will pornography and sex related addictions or pop-ups, how will it come to your channels? Because your algorithm is very different from that. So what are the phases of pornography and sex-related addiction? It's in 6 phases, the 6th phase being the recovery phase. First phase is the exposure phase. Like I said in the previous slide, that's the first contact with pornography or compulsive sexual behavior, often driven by curiosity. Before you know, you're somewhere else. Could be peer influence because your friend told you about it and you're like, let's go check it out. And then could be loneliness, be previous trauma, previous sexual trauma is a potent risk factor for continuous use of pornography and sex related to sex as the case may be. So what happens? It creates initial stimulation and stimulates the dopamine reward pathway. If you are wondering what this is, please, you may need to go back to the neurobiology to be able to understand. So I won't dwell on that for the sake of our time. So leaving the exposure phase, if the person does not back up at this point, gets to the experimentation phase, at which point they repeatedly view and then begin to engage. So either they are viewing the pornography channels, begin to engage in such compulsive sex, then the individual begins to intentionally seek such experience. So it's no longer accidental now, they are actually looking for it. They type it into their search engine and press search, you understand. Then their behavior, this behavior will then become a coping mechanism for stress, for boredom, for anxiety, for emotional pain. The truth is this, everybody goes through boredom. Everybody is anxious every now and then. Even the most stoic, the most solid, the most mentally stable people also experience emotional pain. It's just that, like I said earlier, there's the path of life, there's the path of death. We would always adopt the path that we are tilted towards. So for somebody who does not have issues and has not intentionally been seeking this as a means of coping, when they are stressed, they have emotional pain, they will do the healthy thing, maybe pray, maybe talk to somebody, maybe sit down, reflect, and meditate, maybe listen to music, maybe go out and hang out with friends, or maybe try and face the issue head on and resolve it, as the case may be. So there's a path that we should naturally take to resolve and cope with issues and challenges of life. But at the experimentation phase, this becomes a coping mechanism. And because it also releases a lot of dopamine in the brain, the body just assumes that this is what we need. And by default, you're building a pathway, so you will just naturally find yourself going towards that as a means of relief. Then at the escalation phase, the frequency of use is increased, intensity is increased, the explicitity of the content becomes um, more rigorous, more violent, more abusive, more grotesque, more, you just name the word, because by the tolerance, you now need to keep upping the use, the intensity, and every other thing you can imagine to be able to still achieve that same level of dopamine secretion and that level of psychological satisfaction. So if it's the act of sex, it gets more violent, it gets more intense, it gets very, very unusual, atypical. That's when people adopt the weirdest and the most injurious positions and then come to the hospital um, having lacerated some places in the female genitals and then need surgery. And that is also sadly why you have a few men present with penile fracture. That is an entity because of some very weird and unusual position. The male penis in an erect state is hard, so it can break the way bones will break. So at the escalation phase, those are presentations that come to the hospital. Tolerance develops, I already told you, to the same level of what they did that offered stimulation now no longer offers stimulation. Then time spent on pornography or sexual behavior increases. So you find that from 5 minutes now does 5 hours. And then there's secretive patterns. And lots of boundaries may even emerge. So if you find somebody who watched um, a pedophile pornographic channel and then now becomes a pedophile, you know how that happens now. Lots of boundaries already emerged. And then I think there was a day I found a young man at the hospital reception where you have a lot of people seated. And I was just passing by. When you're passing by somebody handling the phone, you may find what is being watched on the phone. Found that this man was watching pornographic movie in an open public environment. You know what you call that? That is insanity on the go. That should be something that even if you want to do as absurd as it seems, you want to do privately. But when you've lost boundaries so much so that you're by virtue of compulsion, you cannot resist the urge, you cannot resist the craving. You find yourself in a bus, that's what you're watching. In a reception, that's what you're watching. In a public gathering, that's what you're watching. You understand? That's the escalation phase. Then at the compulsion and dependence phase, the individual has strong urges and cravings, becomes very difficult to control. They literally will need important things to be able to go and engage in this act or watch such clips. So that could be a CEO who takes a break from a meeting to enter the toilet to watch some pornographic channels and masturbate. And you may be wondering that is that really true? Those are realities. Those are very sad realities. At this point, we say the persons at the dependence phase, they have several attempts to stop, but it fails. Then their behavior will continue despite the guilt, the shame, the spiritual conflicts. Consequences, maybe marriages on the brink now. A lot of things are going on. They just cannot stop. At this point, we would say they are hooked. We would say they are imprisoned by the behavior. If you look at it logically speaking, that's what is happening at this point. Then every aspect of their life begins to suffer. And despite the fact that consequences is happening emotionally, relationally, academically, occupationally, or spiritually, they will still not be able to stop. At this point, they want to stop. They are open to stop. They are desirous of stopping, but it is not possible because now their brain and biology is hooked on this on this, except by guidance, by accountability, by a lot of intentional acts. They can take the painful but necessary um, intention to stop. And healing is very possible. I'm just saying it will be easier to never get to that point so that the exposure phase you back up, delete such things, um, log off such channels, change your browsing history as the case may be before you get to the fourth phase. It's a slow phase. Nobody starts at exposure and expects that they'll get to dependence. If they knew they'll get to dependence, they will not go near it. Ask anybody who is addicted to any substance or any behavior. Then the fifth phase is the consequence and crisis phase, where they begin to have significant negative effects. Relationships begin to break down, emotional distress, anxiety and depression, reduced productivity is at work. They are not focused. They are distracted. They are always excusing themselves to go do something in the bedroom. If it's in school, it's the same thing too. They miss school a lot of times because they were up all night watching porn or was up all night engaging in some weird sexual acts. Then isolation and then spiritual disconnection. And then some individuals experience hopelessness and identity struggles. Not even some, generally, at this crisis phase. And crisis phase hopefully should lead to a desire to recover. Because sometimes some crisis phase continues like this until um, they then develop worse psychological issues. Depression can get so sad, so bad till it becomes suicidality. Anxiety can also get so bad till it becomes something worse. So you don't want it to get to that crisis phase and all the other worse sequelae that will follow. You want to come to that point of recovery, which is why I believe you're also on this course. You are the recovery and the restoration process. So at the recovery and restoration phase, the person recognizes that this is a problem. This is a problem. This is no longer normal. This is becoming distorted and abnormal. Then begins to seek help. Registering for this course is one of such help you're seeking. Then finds an accountability person. So becomes accountable. This is what I struggle with. I need you to hold me accountable. I need you to be able to check up on me to see if I'm being sober, if I'm keeping to my words. Seeks therapy. I said it a lot of times. You want to use therapy as an addendum to this. When I project how you can reach out to us towards the end, please do reach out to us for therapy services. If it's not available wherever you are, we offer online therapy service. We offer on site as the case may be and as you would want it. And over time, we also hope to begin group therapy so that as many people as possible can begin their journey of recovery. Then you want to seek spiritual support. This is the time you want to plant yourself in a faith community. This is the time you want to plant yourself in a department in church and make sure you go there. You are frequent, you are known, and you even tell them if they don't see you, they should come and look for you. You may not necessarily tell them you struggle with so and so, but make them your accountability partner as you're showing up in church and in practice. Because it's again, you're building a new pathway that leads to sustained recovery, that leads to a purpose driven life. Then you want to build healthy community of sober people, friends, associates, people you hang out with. Then you want to now begin activities that rewire your brain. That will be journaling, that will be meditation, that will be praying, that will be reflection, that will be reading books, that will be watching movies, watching educational videos on how you can recover, even watching videos of those who have struggled with this and have recovered. For each of these um, models, we attached one recommended videos to watch. Please engage with those videos. All of those recommended videos are usually real life stories of those who struggled and came out of it. So it will reinforce. Then you now want to also begin the process of healing your mind, your emotions, your relationship, your identity, which is what we'll now discuss in subsequent every other the remaining five parts of this series is hinged on that process of coming to holistic recovery, building new pathway, building new patterns for life. Yeah. So now one thing I want us to remember, which I've alluded to several, is that addiction is really an instant event. It's a slow phase, it's a progressive cycle that will develop over time, but you can also interrupt it at any time. At the exposure phase, experimentation phase, escalation phase, compulsion phase, crisis phase, you can interrupt it and then heal through intentional recovery processes. So now, porn addiction, sex-related addiction, every kind of addiction actually goes through a vicious cycle. Usually there's, after the person has found that that is their way of coping, and they've rewired their brain and conditioned themselves to see that as a coping mechanism to um, emotional discomfort. Like I told you earlier, life will continue to happen to even the best of us. There will be something that will trigger you emotionally. So your stress understanding with your wife, um, if somebody spoke to you rudely or you had an altercation with someone, that's an emotional trigger. How did that make you feel? That's what you want to sit down and explore. I felt angry. Okay, if I felt angry, what story were you telling yourself? That nobody talks to me like that. Well, what did you make that mean about yourself? It means that I'm not good enough. So I'm good enough. Nobody will talk to me like that. You are exploring yourself. By the time you explore, you likely not get to that point of needing to escape. So it's either you explore or you escape. It's one of the two. For everything that happens, you must explore and challenge. If you don't do that, you will escape and then begin to crave. So somebody who has emotional trigger and does not even explore and is not even aware that they're emotionally triggered begins to crave the behavior or their substance of abuse because they've conditioned their mind to see that as a means of relief, as a way of relief. So by craving, what happens? They go to the activity of addiction. So it could be porn, could be sex, whatever it is. It provides temporary relief. We don't say it doesn't. It provides temporary relief. It's like you're putting a band-aid on a very bad one. Ideally is to explore the wound, suture it if it needs to be sutured, give antibiotics, then do dressing until it heals. But if you're just putting band-aid, it gives you an illusion that the wound is no longer there. It's still there, it's festering, it's getting worse. So after the temporary relief, what do they feel? There is regret, there is shame, there is guilt. These are already negative emotional states again. What happens? That just build up on another minor trigger again. So the emotional trigger happens again, cravings again. They engage in the addiction activity, have a temporary relief, regret, guilt, shame. And so you now find that they are saddled and riddled with either anxiety or depression. That makes sense. And in the ones that could get very bad with a family history and personality predisposition, they could frankly enter psychosis, schizophrenia, and other ones. Is this what caused it? No, it's the accumulation of a lot of factors. We call them multifactorial, but this is one of the potent factors in development of such mental health crisis in such persons. So stages of recovery, the same way you have stages into addiction, you also have stages leading to recovery. So there is the pre-contemplation phase where the individual is even unaware that there's an addiction and has no intention to change. If you are here, you are not in a pre-contemplation stage. You are at least in a contemplation or preparation stage, at least. So contemplation means you acknowledge the problem and you're considering change. So if you're listening to me, I want to also hope that more than considering change, that you're already taking actions from all that I've been saying all this while. So preparation phase is ready to take action and planning for change. Then action stage is that you actively begin to make changes and seek recovery. Then maintenance stages, having got to that point where you would say you've maintained sobriety for 30 days, for 60 days, you then enter the maintenance stage where you now want to sustain the change. You don't want to enter a relapse because a relapse is a possibility. So recovery timeline for porn and sex-related addiction. Month one is set in withdrawal phase. What happens here? There's still a lot of cravings, which is natural. So if you're having cravings, it's natural. You want to keep yourself positively engaged. You want to make sure your mood is stabilized. You want to make sure you're eating and hydrating. So biologically, you are settled so that it's not tiredness and hunger that is a craving for you. You want to make sure you're hanging out with positive people. You want to make sure you're positively occupied, as I said earlier. You're reading books, you're journaling, you're busy with work or busy with school, busy with life, busy with parenting, as the case may be, busy with business. And you may find that your sleep is being disrupted. So exercise will help you sleep better. So you can exercise in the morning, exercise in the evening, have a warm bath. and plug in some cool, relaxing music or even meditation sounds or white noise. White noise could be raining sound, as the case may be, and then that helps you sleep. And if it means that sleeping you're twisting and turning, wait till you are tired so you can sleep. So it may mean that you wait a bit until you get drowsy so that while you're on the bed, twisting and turning, and sleep is not coming. You're not tempted to reach for that pornographic channel because at the withdrawal phase, it will really, really be quite a challenge. Then you may find that you have brain fog. You wonder what's the relationship between porn addiction and brain fog because it literally has rewired the person's neurobiology. The ability to focus, to concentrate, to make intentional decisions, the seat of self-control here has been distorted by the addiction. So the ability to concentrate may not be too wonderful. It's understandable. It will not pass the 1 month. It will not pass that 1 month, except you go back into the addiction. But even if you relapse, pick yourself up again, continue. If you relapse again, pick yourself up again, continue. You would only be said to have failed when you stop trying. So if you don't stop trying, you've not failed. Then you may find that your mood is off. So irritable, having mood swings, depression and anxiety. Why? Because the brain chemicals, the neurotransmitters are off. The behavior of addiction, the porn, the sex was what was helping release a bit of dopamine. So you're taking it off now, and the body is not releasing enough to natural activities because tolerance and down regulation of receptors has happened. So it will also give you also give the brain some time to get better. You may find that you're tired. These are possibilities that will happen in the first month. So the second month now, the body begins to recalibrate. So the mood is getting better, energy is getting better, cravings begins to reduce. There's more emotional stability. You begin to have more interest in activities. In the first month, you may not have interest, you have to push yourself. So that could even be your accountability partner who pushes you and calls you up. Okay, see that these are the things you're going to do, one, two, three. When you do them, call me. Because towards the end of the course, we would introduce the 21-day challenge. So you know these are the things I'm doing every day for the first 21 days. And I will usually say that 21-day challenge, take it in 3 cycles. So you do the first one for the past, you do another one for the present, you do another cycle for the future. So that means you're doing 63 days. So your accountability partner has your booklets of what you're doing. You also have it. And your accountability partner calls you up. So today, this is what you're doing. Call me up when you do it. Or you don't be the one to call the person up. So these are the things I'm doing according to the booklet. This day. So I've done the first one. I just want you to know because you're my accountability partner. I've done the second one. I want you to know. And it may be that you call the person you need me, as the case may be, just somebody walking that journey with you. Then you, in the second month, you may now begin to have increased social connection. The third month, you're beginning to find freedom. So you have greater confidence and self-esteem. Your focus and drive is getting better because the prefrontal cortex is beginning to heal now. Your ability to self-control, ability to be focused, ability to make rational decisions is coming back. Then you experience better physical and mental health. Your moods are getting stable. And if you're married, your real life sex may now begin to recover, seem more appealing because at least you've toned down the excess stimulation over a while and your body has had time to recover. And by month 4 to 6, we would not say you're healed, we would say you are recovered because it's a chronic issue that affects the brain pathway. And we expect that you continue to steward the activities that got you to the third month for the rest of your life if you would not experience a relapse. So at that point, your life is in color. You begin to enjoy normal activities. Your relationship improves. And then by now, if you have stewarded yourself and this activity well for the first 3 months, your life should be headed in the direction of purpose. Remember all the activities I said incorporate is not just to people, it is that you're building holistic, robust habits that makes for success across every area of life. Then you also begin to experience marked mental clarity. So, what are some lifestyle changes that you may want to just chip in? Lifestyle changes, in my own opinion, for everybody who is headed anyway, not just for quitting porn. Exercise and physical activity will boost your mood, energy, and your motivation naturally, different from the unnatural boost you've been getting from the behaviors. Then healthy nutrition will support your brain function and emotional stability. Energy drinks, what it does is it picks you up and then you crash again. So if all you've been eating is energy processed meals that are quite sugar and fat dense, you are not giving your body something stable. Your sugar levels are not stabilized. It's spiking your sugar level. Your cells are not recovering as they should. You're exposing yourself to a lot of um, oxidizing agents and free radicals. So we would not say you're feeding yourself well then. So if you want to support your brain function, you want to eat all organic meals and you want to include all the classes of food on each plate of meal you take. Then you social connection, you want to engage with family, friends, and hobbies, positive hobbies, to reduce isolation, to boost your emotion, to increase your state of happiness. All of these are wonderful mood boosters. Then you want to do a digital detox, limit screen time. Beyond quitting pornography and sex-related addiction, anyone who wants to make something of note in their life has to moderate screen time usage. And then you want to rewire your brain's reward system by engaging in activities that will naturally secrete dopamine and still build you towards purpose. Reading is one of such. Courses is one of such. And heartfelt discussion that are purpose-led, purpose-driven with people who are futuristic is one of such. Mentoring, coaching is one of such. Therapy is one of such. Then you also want to engage in mindfulness and meditation. Helps you with stress, helps you to focus, and also helps with emotional regulation. So I said it earlier that if you want to reach out to us for therapy at this point, please, the contacts are made available here. If you have questions, if you have comments, you can send them either to the email or send them to this number via WhatsApp. Until next time, have a wonderful day.